evening and welcome to the Timberlane School Board meeting of February 16th, 2023. I will call this meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. Linda, could you call the roll, please?
Yep. Brian Boyle.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Tim Farah.
Should be here shortly.
Kristen Savage.
No.
Donna Manthorn.
Here.
Katie Knutson.
Here.
Michael Boucher.
Here.
And Myrick Sherwood.
And Kim McCormick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rise for pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of minutes in our packet. Let's go over the public minutes first. Public minutes of February 2nd.
A motion to accept the public meeting minutes of February 2nd, 2023.
Motion made by Sheila, second by Katie. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you an abstention?
No. I was
Okay.
You were counting,
1, 2,
sorry.
3, 5,
5,
4, 5,
0, 1.
0, 1. Thank you. We also have of the same evening a non-public minutes, February 2nd.
I'll make a motion to accept the sealed non-public minutes from February 2nd, 2023.
Second. Motion by Sheila, second by Michael. Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 5-0-1. Publics. Thank you, sir. Are there any delegates and individuals this evening?
No, there is not.
Okay. There are no delegates and individuals. Okay. We'll go right into our first order of business here tonight. This one update, which I believe, Jeff, you're going to give us.
I'm happy to present. You folks have an executive summary in your packet that's got kind of the data tables that I'll reference tonight. And again, just as a reminder, this is an update since the last update in January. So there are two sets of tables in your executive summary. The first two are specific to the middle and the high school, and that is over about the course of the last month since our last update in January. And then we've included for your reference as comparison the tables were reviewed in January at the bottom of the executive summary, so you can see the kind of change over time. There was a request to be able to report out the locations of discipline incidents. Right now, we're currently not tracking that information in PowerSchool, but what I'm writing to you here is that we'll work with the technology department and see if that is something that is feasible for us to do moving forward. So we'll explore that and get back to this group with an update for that. But you can see the numbers for the middle school. The categories remain the same. Those are kind of the reportable pieces, and you can see the numbers there at the high school. And again, those categories are commensurate with what the categories were that were presented out in January. So the numbers are the numbers. I'm not going to kind of read the table out for you.
No, but I
folks,
got a question.
Sure.
January middle school back end page. Back side of the page. I see one issue. But in school is 6 and total days was 7.
That includes the disruption one, right? Am I correct?
So
There's not 6 across. There's only 1.
But I think this is 1 plus these 6 equals the 7. She showed this one. Yeah, look.
No, but for some reason, what is the,
Right, so total days would be this.
but I think what Sheila's referring to is the
Is that what
color.
we're doing?
I can answer for you.
Here you
So
go.
there are instances where you could have an incident that categorizes things both as an in-school and an out-of-school, that we are attempting to, students can be suspended out of school And for the same infraction, we could bring them back in school to get them back into the school building at an earlier date. So they're not mutually exclusive to one another.
Okay.
Are all these incidents individuals, or are they, you're just reporting them as different types of incidents?
So these are the incidents and individuals. You can look at it the same way because this is the discipline yielded. So the discipline's going to be yielded when there is an incident, and it will be yielded against an individual. If there were going to be 2 individuals that receive discipline, you would see a number 2 represented in that category.
Okay, follow up to that. So that means, for example, if you have an incident for physical disruption, you wouldn't have that person also marked under harassment if they happen to do both infractions.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
You would always, Michael, you would yield to the higher level of infraction.
Okay. So, with that being said, you don't necessarily know if maybe 1 or 2 individuals are maybe the cause of multiple incidents because you're only recording them under one type of incident?
Not sure I follow that question. How I would explain it is that if we're looking at the middle school table specific to the last month,
Okay.
there is 1 physical incident that was documented in January. So that incident could have involved 4, 5, 6, 2 students, but there is 1 discipline administration, so 1 student is receiving some form of discipline in that case. If that situation had 6 students and 2 of them were going to receive discipline, you see the number 2 in that category because we're administering 2 separate things of discipline on each separate student record.
Right. Just use another example. So let's say, for example, there's a physical disruption and
So physical and disruption are
They're
2
two different
different
things.
categories.
physical incident. Sorry, physical incident and a vaping incident. Right. Is that possible for 1 student to cause both infractions, right? And then we only count for 1, if I'm understanding you correctly?
Yeah, theoretically, that would be possible. I couldn't imagine an incident that would be physical in nature and include a vape as well. The categories are mostly mutually exclusive because the administrators need to make a determination of what the violation is, and then that has some impact on what that consequence is going to be. But when they're communicating that to the family or the parent or the guardian, they're giving the context of the entire situation.
Try not, try not to pile on discipline, right? It's not the same as if charges are being pressed against you by the district attorney where they might list multiple infractions, right? And they're looking to press charges on as many infractions as they can for whatever reason. We're looking at, consequencing students based on if it's an event that, might fall into a couple of categories. You're trying not to pile on the student.
Okay.
I guess we had this chat about Sheila. How come suspensions, are those tracked or what? How's that work? There's no suspensions on here?
Yeah, so the gray column is the number of days, the total number of days that would have resulted in each month.
I understand, but like a suspension. So that's,
Those
so
are
that
days
is a
of
suspension?
Days of suspension.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, if my memory serves me correctly, the board had asked for some data collection regarding discipline because the administration had come to the board about a position for an in-school support suspension person.
One at middle and one at high school.
Thank you,
yes.
okay. And so I think that was the reason why we've been asking for this data. So I'm just wondering if and when we're gonna have an opportunity, or should we be circling back to that conversation with our admin, given that we have some data now? Or that was the purpose of collecting this data and reporting on it?
That was the purpose, I agree.
It was.
But there's, in terms of, I'm not sure, I think there's probably some budgetary constraints right
Yep.
now, I would guess.
maybe it's not a conversation we have tonight, obviously,
Yeah.
but my understanding was that we were gonna circle back to this discussion, so we have the data, and I think we now need to do that. That's what our charge was to them. They provided the data, and now I think it's, needs to have another discussion.
Okay.
So can we do that? Yes. You know I love that expression, circle back.
It's a circle back.
Not naive today.
Well, I would say you'll be circling back after March is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Right. But I just wanna make sure that it's,
Sure. Okay.
So, for people that are on the board then, when would you like to have another discussion about this? I guess what you'd have to do is think about this in light of, one, well, not that it really matters, because this is a personnel matter. You'd really have to look at it in light of what the staffing levels are gonna need to be across the district to see if you could possibly repurpose some positions for this, if that's what the board decides to do. So I would think probably the June timeframe, you should have a pretty good idea. I don't know, maybe somebody.
Maybe they already know, well, we should know the teachers
Sandy,
now,
yeah.
but you don't know what you're gonna have filled and so forth for the following year.
Well, you'll have a better idea once classes and everything are organized.
Right.
Sandy's nodding her head. So you think June is a reasonable time? Okay, June, I would.
I think it's also gonna depend on the budget.
Yeah.
Gonna depend on what passes. If
That's
we
what
have
I
the
was
default
thinking,
or we have the
that it should be a
budget, I mean,
conversation.
Personnel is personnel. There's
Yeah, but
no
it's still-
changes in the budget in terms of,
but my point is if you're with a lower number, you might wanna not fill positions if you
Well-
don't have to.
that's true, yeah.
So I think there's a lot of factors that are gonna go into
Yeah,
it.
so June is probably a good time to put it on the back burner. In the past, we used to have a sheet on our, with our agenda, and Kelly may want to, like a back burner, like what was coming up for
Up a back
meetings,
burner,
so that
right.
you would know. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Back when? Because there were
Back when?
certain things we,
Back in the day.
back in the
Kelly,
day.
she's like, what else do you want from
it's
me,
the
people?
circle back. See, it works.
Well,
Things that we need to circle back to later
Well,
on.
it was
at
a
future
good,
date.
it was a good tool because you could then say,
You
oh,
could look
yeah.
at it and
we
see,
always-
oh yeah, we forgot, we haven't brought that back yet, and we haven't done a motion on this yet, and, because that's what happens when you're budget time.
Right, and there are certain things that are supposed to come to the board by certain dates, like enrollment figures and things like that, so it would probably be good to resurrect that.
Sure.
Not that I'll be
Remember
here.
that.
I won't be here,
There you go.
for you guys. But that's
That's
it,
only
remain.
marking how many times you say that. I collect my own data over here.
I'm
And then
still
you
trying
can circle
to
back to the
push out my
tally.
institutional knowledge to everybody.
Okay, so we're gonna,
circle back in June.
I was gonna use a different analogy. Stole my thunder, but yes, okay.
Okay, Connie, that may-
Yeah, see?
okay, I
And then
think
you
we're
can
done with this
look, I
topic.
think so too, and they can
Yeah.
look forward to future
Thank you.
agenda
Can we
backups
continue
there.
to collect this data over the next month so that we have all the data that is available to us for, because when did we start collecting this? Was,
This is from the outset of the school year.
okay, yeah, so we'll have an entire year's
Yep,
worth of
we'll
data.
continue to do
We
that.
can
Yeah, we started getting it, I think, in what, November?
use that for forward making decisions.
But you would need it for your next board members too, so that
Right.
they have a
Yep,
picture.
agreed.
Okay.
Thank you, Justin.
Next agenda item, second read, Forensic Science Evening Division, action item. Good evening.
Good evening. What you have before you is the second read of the forensic science course. I did make the changes as suggested by the board where instead of calling it abiotic and biotic for evidences, it's just evidence unit 1 and evidence unit 2. So that's the only changes reflected in your packet tonight.
Okay, thank you. Just one other thing in here, and it's just in evidence unit 2 at the bottom on acquisition, near the bottom where it says students will know. second from the bottom, the LD50 is a method to classify how toxic a substance is. I think that belongs in evidence unit 1, or you're talking about toxicology.
Yes. Okay, I will make that change.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions on this item? Hearing none. I look for a motion here to accept this.
I'll make a motion to accept this as a second read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Please.
Thank you.
Strategic plan update.
So strategic plan update, this was kind of a request of the board and just trying to catch everybody back up to speed. So the subcommittee of the board began meeting in July of 2022. That team consists of 14 Timberlane Regional School District administrators, 2 school board members, Michael and Kim respectively, and 1 member of the budget committee, Sue Sherman. They met every month beginning in July with the exception of August and twice in September. During those times, we reviewed those 5 bullets that you see in front of you in terms of reviewing the progress, achievements, and unaddressed elements of the current strategic plan. We administered and reviewed data from thought exchanges and survey monkeys that we saw input from families and students. We had a conversation that was significant about considering reaching out to consultants to guide the strategic plan. We reviewed the CPI plan and also any past working or thinking in the facilities committee. And then we continually group those discussion points into broader categories to kind of target future work. At our November meeting, the committee got to a point where they wanted to identify 4 primary buckets that they were going to begin organizing the strategic plan within. Those buckets were facilities and learning environments, personnel, learning, and community connections and communications. A lead was assigned for each one of those buckets, and those subgroups have been working since November with the date of February 23rd to reconvene and bring a draft portion of the strategic plan in relation to each of those buckets. The group believes that kind of moving forward, what we're going to be able to do is that March will be a time for those subgroups to get back together and synthesize that work to make sure that we are having conversations that overlap and maybe even underlap one another and to build more of a cohesive plan. In April, the goal is to share a draft strategic plan with the board for the first read on April 6th, and then share it with the Timberlane Regional School District staff for feedback between the 10th and the 28th of April. In May, we'd like to share that draft plan with families and the community to solicit feedback. And the strategic planning committee will convene in full again to review the composite of that feedback and then do any refinement to the plan itself during the month of May. Then with the end goal of bringing it back to the board in June for second read and approval. And again, the end goal, the overarching goal, is to have a strategic plan in place as of July 1st of the summer. And we're confident that this timeline will get us there. Okay, Michael, I don't want to shut you guys out, but I don't know if you've got other things you want to add or other smaller pieces that you think are meaningful.
Also we can specifically talk about what's happening in our communications subcommittee. We had, I think it was like 3 meetings after the larger group met in November, and I think we made a lot of great progress in terms of advocating for improved communication throughout the district. I think there are some things that we have devised and developed that I think the community would be very pleased with. So we're hoping to, express and share that information with the larger group, and hopefully we'll be able to put it all together with the larger strategic plan.
Great.
Good with what Michael said. I was there. Good job, Michael. Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
Nope.
Questions?
It's a great timeline.
It's a great timeline.
It's really thorough.
Great. Well, thanks for the update. Okay, next agenda item, block scheduling update.
So I'll introduce this. Sandy and Mark are going to do certainly most of the heavy lifting in the presentation. But this is coming back about just bringing some consideration of data and information back to the board. And just quickly to set the stage, kind of how we got here and then what to expect tonight in this 15 or 20-minute presentation. On February 2nd, the last board meeting, Sandy presented an executive summary to this group and really did 5 key things. There was the definition of the history of how we are at block scheduling. So we reviewed that there was a committee established in 2015-16, and the implementation of block scheduling began in the year 17-18. The school board endorsed that recommendation for the middle school, the high school, and the PAC. There was a superintendent's advisory committee that was established as a feedback loop during the implementation process. There was a standing agenda item at curriculum and instruction committee meetings from 2017 to 2019. And then the middle school finally moved away from block scheduling throughout the winter of 21-22. So that's kind of the history in stock. Tonight, we're going to look at 3 primary pieces. We're going to talk about students, staff, and sections. That was a request of the board. We're going to look at student achievement data. That was a request of the board. And then trying to parse out some financial or other variables that we were able to gather some consistent data sets in comparison to block scheduling, kind of see what conclusions we can draw from that. Again, the purpose for us tonight is just to provide information to inform the discussions and decisions that this body wants to make. There are a lot of slides to go through. I know that you had this in advance. You have hard copies at your table. What we'd like to ask is to allow us to walk through all those slides. And if you've got questions or comments that you want to raise, just make a notation of the slide number, and we will revisit all of those pieces toward the end. But a lot of pieces will connect together, so we'd like to move through it and then kind of have that discussion at the conclusion.
Perfect.
So the first piece is looking at staff and student schedules, pre-block and post-block, and also looking at ratios of students and staff and sections pre-block and post-block.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
You're welcome.
So the first piece of information that we're looking at right now, these are the actual schedules that we had in place at the high school prior to the implementation of the block schedule in 17-18, along with our current schedule. So you can see we had an 8-period day. From a student and teacher perspective, one of those 8 periods was a study lunch period or a lunch study period. It changed. You can see the number of lunches that we ran. We now shifted to a 4-period block, so 8 periods over 2 days. Lunch is integrated into block 3 every day, and you can see how that rotation works based on content areas. So that's just information. From those 2 schedules, we generated from both a teacher perspective and a student perspective the breakdown of time. And so these are aligned with actual schedules that we put together. We broke it out over 2 days from both a teacher perspective again and a student perspective because the 8 periods on the block model, you need the 2 days to get through the 8 periods. So on this first model, this is teacher A and teacher B. They have different duty periods, and you can see the breakdown of time and the differentials in each of those categories. The next 2 slides have 4 student schedules. The way we approached this is these first 2, student A and student B. This is the maximum schedule on both models. So for a student on our old schedule, the maximum schedule was 7 instructional classes. That did include a half-period study hall along with lunch. So you can see that breakdown compared to 7 classes on the block. Because our block schedule does provide the opportunity for 8 instructional classes if a student opts into that, you can see what that differential will be. So again, on our old model, it still would have been the 7 class maximum. The block does provide the opportunity for 8. Student C and D, student C, 6 classes. That model would provide a student with a full period study hall every day on both models. So again, you can look at those breakdowns. Student D, that is the minimum requirement for students to be enrolled full-time in our schools. So that is 5 classes on both models.
You can see those comparisons. That also is a typical model for students who are enrolled in CTE at either Salem or Pinkerton. They might take 5 classes here with us and attend their CTE classes at those 2 other schools.
So what I did here is I looked at data coming out of Power School, and I just ran the numbers of the section to teacher ratios for pre-block, for the 6 years pre-block and the 6 years post-block. And so you get 6.92 sections per teacher in both instances. I did the same for student to teacher ratio then, and that's 14.4 and 13.4. And student to section ratio, 16.2, 15.0. So they're not incredibly different between pre-block and post-block in those. Using that same data set, pulled data out of Power School. These are the total number of classroom teachers per year with scheduled classes. So you can see that it's trending down over the years. Same type of graph for student to teacher ratio. Again, trend line is down. Total sections per year. Trend line is trending down over the years. Average kids per section. Slight trend down, and average sections per teacher, it's basically a 0 trend. But that data is all just pulled out of Power School year after year with the reports that we can get out of Power School.
Okay. Also, the last time we were here, there was a request to bring a general overview of student achievement data going back 6 years, which is what we're going to bring to you tonight. So this, you'll see actually 2 slides that look very similar. The first is for math. The second will be for English language arts. So this is going back to 2016. So again, they're color-coded at the bottom. You can look at the year. 2020 is not represented due to COVID. We did not administer state assessments that year, so we do skip a year. So going back by grade, that 6-year collection of data to see how we have performed, where we have gone down, gone up. It may be difficult to see, but beginning in grade 6 in 2018, that was the first year of the implementation of the block schedule at both the middle and the high schools. And so those were just a visual to draw your attention to when we implemented block. So that was our math data. This is the same data set. Presented differently. We've brought this slide to you before when we've presented state assessment data. This is our cohort tracking. So you can track student performance across grade levels, 8th grade to 8th grade, year to year, for example. But you can also track each cohort of students as they move up a grade level by color. And across the columns as they move over. The last column gives you sort of the differential over or under from a cohort perspective, not the lateral perspective, grade 5 one year to grade 5 the following year, if that makes sense. So again, the next slide is essentially the same data set, but for English language arts. And that is, I should have mentioned, that's the state assessment up through grade 8, the New Hampshire state assessment system. It's the SAT for grade 11, so. And you have the cohort tracking slide as well for English language arts achievement over the past 6 years. Just one note on SAT, because we're going to see some SAT slides, if you want to move forward, Mark. This is the SAT data, our achievement data compared against the state average, percent proficient, going back to 2016. Just a couple notes, 2016 was the first year that the SAT became our assessment for accountability. So that was the first year that all 11th graders were required to take the SAT. In 2019, that was the first year that the essay was required for all students. Prior to that, the essay was optional. So we've had a couple changes over the years, but this is our math data compared to the state. And this is our reading and writing data, percent proficient, Timberlane compared to the state.
This is similar data taken from a different source. This is taken from the New Hampshire iExplore, New Hampshire DOE's iExplore, and it's lumping together percent proficient for both ELA and math. And I'm showing you this data because the following sets of data is is putting ELA and math percent proficient together, whereas in the previous couple slides, we were looking at ELA and math as separate data points, whereas on the state data that I pulled this from from iExplore, they are together. So I just wanted to show you that data as a together data set. The next documents I'm going to go through, each one of these is a different heat map in your packet. Just so you're all aware, this information is coming from the New Hampshire DOE, from the iExplore. Any information with the double asterisks is coming from the New Hampshire Employment Security Economic and Labor Market Information Bureau, and any information with triple asterisks is coming from the websites of New Hampshire school districts. So there's 80 high schools represented here. I looked at the schedules and the credit requirements for all 80 of those high schools.
Just a point of clarification, Mark, and for the board, the heat packets are a separate packet in your binder there that you could pull out, or I think your eyes could be on the screen as we look at that. So either way that you want to access the data sets, I think would make sense for you.
So as you're looking at the heat map, the colors represent, the reds, yellows, greens represent student achievement. So percent proficient on ELA and math. The more green, the higher the percentage. What I've done for you is in each one of these heat maps is as you scroll down, you can see, or as you look, you can see, how all 80 of the high schools are. I've tried to put up at the top where Timberlane ranks. In all cases, it's from low to high, and all of these heat maps are generated low to high. I've also looked at what sort of schedule those schools are in. So short represents, short periods. Block represents some variant of a block period. So, as I scroll down this is the average over 5 years for percent proficient for both ELA and math. As you can see, it gets more dark green, the higher the percent proficient. Timberlane is always bolded, so you can always sort of pick Timberlane out in each of these heat maps. So this is just average percent proficient over 5 years. This one I looked at participation rates. So again, we go from low to high. Anything above 90 at the state level was just categorized as greater than 90.
So this is the backup data for these graphs.
There's another way of representing the data. I'll get to that, yes.
Okay, I just want people
Yep,
to.
there's, yep.
It's the same data presented two different ways.
Correct.
That's all.
Correct.
I didn't know if everybody.
Nope, I'll get to that. This is the percent of students with disabilities. Again, low to high. Timberlane is number 74 out of 78 because two schools actually have less than enough students to classify as having students with disabilities. Anything less than 10% is so that you've got two not represented, one at less than 10%. But Timberlane is actually pretty high here. Go to minimum credits required. Again, going from low to high. Timberlane is at 22. Just scroll down. And I know that you have all these in your packet, but this next one looks at post-secondary enrollment rate. Low to high. Timberlane is 47 out of 80. There's Timberlane. And we go to the end. This next one looks at average teacher salary. Low to high. Timberlane is 54 out of 80. Once again, this column is the metric that we're looking at. The reds, yellows, greens are the percent proficient for both ELA and math on the SATs. There's Timberlane. There is that one. This one is percent of classes taught by experienced teachers. 58 out of 80. There's Timberlane. Next one is percent of classes taught by experienced teachers. Timberlane's 58 out of 80. We have certified teachers, 25 out of 80. This one starts pretty high, but cost per pupil, 52 out of 80. There's Timberlane. Percent of students that are economically disadvantaged. And note that there is a large number of, or I shouldn't say large, but a good number of schools, all less than 10%. This data was collected, just as a caveat here, this data was collected by the state based upon free and reduced lunch applications, and this was also during the time period where all students were receiving free lunch. So there could be, but again, this data is directly from the state, so I don't know the details of which ones are. I just wanted to throw that caveat in there with that data set. This next one is percent of community with bachelor's degree or higher. Again, low to high. Timberlane at 37 out of 80. There's Timberlane. Go down to the bottom of the list. And this last one is the median household income, low to high. Timberlane is 67 out of 80. There's Timberlane, and there's the end of the list. So if we go back into the presentation, as Dr. Farrar pointed out, all of this data is just represented as a different way. Here are the 80 high schools. The y-axis is the percent proficient for ELA and math. Each dot represents a high school. Those dots that are blue are block schedule, and those dots that are purple, they're not on block. They're on some different variant. This is the percent the participation. These graphs are coming directly from the New Hampshire DOE's iExplore. It's more of an interactive graph online where you can hover over each dot and it will show you what school it is. But this is not interactive. This is the shot taken from it, so that's where I'm pointing out Timberlane with the arrow. Students with disabilities, there's Timberlane as compared to the other 80 schools. Economically disadvantaged, Timberlane, remember, with a bunch of schools was less than 10%. Post-secondary enrollment, Timberlane. Average teacher salary, Timberlane. Classes by experienced teachers. Certified educators in the subject. Average cost per pupil. These two graphs I built because this data was coming out of that other New Hampshire website, not the DOE's website, but it was coming from that labor website. So this is Timberlane compared to the other 80 high schools. There's the median household income with Timberlane identified by that dot. And I believe Mr. Vaccarezza will join us here because as the building principal, the high school building principal, we feel having his voice as part of this discussion is imperative.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. I've been at 3 high schools as an administrator, and at each one, the question of scheduling has come about. One's at Pinkerton Academy, where they eventually changed to a block schedule at one point in time, and they've changed a little bit and wrinkles on there. Dealt with the Manchester school system that was doing it, and obviously Timberlane as well. One of the things as a school, I don't think you're ever married to a schedule, and I think that's really important to understand, is that you really want to look and focus at what's going to be best for the students, what's going to make the staff as efficient and best for them, and what's involved in that process. Each one of those schools that I'm talking about, it's taken time to figure out what is the proper schedule. As Mark said, you have short schedules, then you have block schedules, then you have block with short schedules where you could have 2 days of block or 3 days of block and 2 days of what they call skinny. So it's not just a one block, one short schedule type situation. Also, you have different types of blocks. You could do a 4x4 where you're doing a course over every single day for a semester, or you could be doing the type of block that we are having where you have a block and you do it every other day like the A day, B day. So there's a lot of different types of schedules that are out there, and you want to make sure you investigate them. And then once a decision is really made, you also want to make sure that we're giving the staff the necessary resources and professional development to be successful in doing that. Currently, at our school, we'd be sitting on December, 17, 18. So any teacher who's been at our school that has been hired since 17, 18 might not have any training other than in a block schedule. So you do want to give them the proper professional development to be successful, okay? Now, it's not saying it cannot be done. But one of those things is if you go straight from one to the other, many times they'll say, I was doing a block, it was 90 minutes, now it's 45, I'll just chop it in half. But that's not the efficiency of it. Other things when you look into the schedules that have experienced in the past, some courses are benefited by schedules, it appears, more than others. Okay? In general, like your humanities, your art, PE, those type of courses benefit from longer times so that you can do a more activity-based opportunities. Where sometimes you're looking at a math, or world language, where the idea of meeting every single day is seen as the best way to do it. So it's not just we're going to put a schedule here, we're going to put one there. And I purposely left off science because science is the one that's most interesting because it's linked so much with math that you say every single day. But we're trying to get experience in learning, so you want to allow labs, okay? And so if you're going to have labs, you need more time. Now, in a traditional standard schedule, that can happen. You just have to now make the schedule that you double up the period, in essence, making it into a block period so you can do those labs. So just, as far as thoughts and observations, those are things that come into account when truly selecting a schedule. But there's a lot that has gone on. As I said, worked with it at Pinkerton. It took a number of years. Worked with it in the Manchester school system. It usually takes a little bit of time, and then, you want to investigate all the options that are there. And maybe you find that what we have is really the best option overall, or maybe you find that it's not. And based on observation, obviously it was determined in 16, 17 or 15, 16. I know there was a process here that took place that it was going to be better going to block. Okay, maybe now we have to relook at it, but, I would take the due diligence and time to make sure we're doing that right.
Can I just ask for clarification? You said Manchester schools are in block?
They went to block the last year I was there.
Last year?
The last year I was there, that's when the decision was made.
I'm only asking because it says short here, that's why I'm...
Because what happens is, you have 4 different school systems, 4 different
Right, 4
schools
different
there.
schools.
MST has been a block. West was a block. Now now 2 of the schools have gone back, and to the short, I believe, Central and Memorial. They did 1-year block and then they went back. There's other data points that we haven't gone into because there were 3 specific, but also the amount of travel time within the school day.
Right.
That's when and I don't have the data right in front, but the more transitions between classes, the more opportunities for disciplinary issues that take place in general, where if you have less, usually there's going to be less transitions, less opportunities for the major disciplines.
You ready for questions here now?
Yeah.
Okay. Kim?
First, thank you for all the data. I love data. One thing that might be helpful sometimes is to put error bars, because sometimes you're making a trend, and I'm not really sure that it's a valid trend based on, but I don't know if you can do that based on the data that you're getting off your sites. Because they don't really give you a,
So the data that I got from the New Hampshire DOE's website did not have error bars.
yeah, so
So
you can't really do it.
So
It's just-
I then, when I had those graphs, I didn't put in the error bars because, comparing two sets of graph, I didn't want to have some with error
Yeah,
bars,
yeah,
some
no.
without, so.
It's
you know,
okay. It's okay. What really struck me in this raw, I'd consider this raw data versus graphs, is the percent of students with disabilities in our district is near the top out of 80 schools. From a budgetary point of view, this has been, we are driving the budget up $1 million a year. I cannot believe, no, I don't know. Let me put it a different way. We need to figure out why we have such a high percent of students with disabilities and get a handle on this. Something just doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to leave it at that because that's not this discussion. Back to this discussion. I've always opposed the block schedule as it was implemented at Timberline. Sandy knows. My daughter had a big, thing. And when I look at this, I'm not necessarily opposed to a skinny block or a block that will allow you to have the two things that we know, because you just said, Mr. Vaccarezza, benefit from daily instruction is math and world languages. And when we look at where our society is right now, what our students need to know to get jobs, 1, STEM, 2, this country is becoming more and more diverse, whether we like it or not, and understanding world languages and culture is probably one of the top things that we need to do in this country. So I am not in favor of continuing with this AB block, and I will motion to get rid of it as soon as possible and bring math and world languages into these schools every day. We're doing a disservice to our kids. We don't have as much instructional time from our teachers, and we need to change something here. It's been going on too long. That's my view on it. And the data, without getting into nitty-gritty, shows exactly what I think I'm saying.
Sorry. Exactly what I think I'm saying. Yeah. My turn?
Go for it.
Oh, thanks, Brian.
Wait, Sheila, before you do that, could I ask for a response to my statements from the superintendent?
No.
Sure. I'm assuming you didn't intend to make it sound this way, but the one thing that struck me the most was the your comment that whether or not we like that our world is becoming more diverse. That struck me.
How did it strike you? I know there are people that,
Okay.
I apologize for the comment. I apologize for the comment. It might have come,
Yeah, I think you
we are-
probably didn't intend to
I didn't mean
make
it to come
sound
across that way. I'm saying we're getting more diverse.
Yeah. What else would you like a response on? Just your comments? You mean? I don't disagree. I think as far as we want to optimize our opportunities for learning, and we want to focus our learning to be directed toward the type of instruction, the amount of instruction, the frequency of instruction that is going to be the most effective for our students. And if that's block, if it's a more traditional shorter periods, if it's a hybrid, whatever it is, I think we need to continue to explore that, and we need to, and they know they hear this from me a lot, sense of urgency. We need to start to make real decisions in real time, in an expeditious way, in order to move forward and not continue on some of the downtrends that we've seen with regard to student performance and learning. And, we are in areas, we are seeing the uptick, but we need to capitalize on that, and we need to make changes that are going to support that. Your comment about identified students, I absolutely agree. That's, we're still in the midst of our audit. That is absolutely an area that we need to improve upon, but we also need to improve upon the provision of services and programs so that we can support students with disabilities in our school district and provide them the appropriate level of support so that they can be the most successful as well. But I share your concern, as we've talked about before, with respect to the percentage of identified students. And it's something that's been longstanding here. I think I talked about it
absolutely.
before. I can remember 20 years ago, Timberlane being at 20+ percent when nobody else was even close to that. So it's interesting, as to why, and that's something that we're focused on.
So you mentioned a timeline. We've been looking at block scheduling now for 5 years. I don't see any data that is supporting the move to block scheduling as we have it in the district. So what's the timeline here for making a change to get more instructional time and to get students back in the classroom every day for math and world languages? What's the time frame here? Because it's been 5 years, and I've seen decline upon decline in those areas specifically. I haven't even gone to science. Don't let me even go to science because I don't want to go there. But we've always been very low, especially at the elementary level in science. I'm hoping we've improved, Mr. Pedersen, but I'm confident we've improved, Mr. Pedersen.
We're
Okay.
working on it.
Okay.
I want to see them improve just as much as you do.
So
Timeline.
what's the timeline?
Yeah, from a practical, impracticable standpoint, right? We need to do so, if we're going to make a change, it needs to be done at a specific time.
When?
So to make that change for the start of this school year, based on my conversations with everyone, does not sound like it's a prudent decision to make if we were going to try and expedite something, to make a change for the start of the coming school year, just because schedules are already done, all of that. But I think we continue to explore it, and we look and we make a decision that's timely in order to, if we are going to make a change for the following year, that we need to do that, and we need to do that, my understanding is, in the next 6 months, that decision would need to be made. Is that correct?
You'd have to look into the research and find the schedule that you're going to do.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean you just go back to another one.
No, I understand, but
so you
if a
wanna-
change is
right,
to
but
be
you'd
made,
have to-
right?
That would be a.
You need at
be a
least
fast
6
ti-
months
That'd be a
out.
fast timeline if you're gonna do it right.
Can I just say that there are so many variables, and it's not just block schedule that is changing our test scores and all that. So why are we specifically, I mean, I'm not married to it. One way or the other. I certainly don't think we should do it for next year. I would love to look at it more in curriculum and assessment. We had a great meeting all about the incredible presentation that Mark put together in the data. But there's so many other things that go into test scores that we didn't even look at. We were just looking at block scheduling. So I think we should have a timeline, and I think it should go through curriculum and assessment, maybe for however long, through the summer, whatever. But I don't think it should be an immediate.
What was the other major change other than block scheduling from 2018 to current that would have driven these scores down so precipitously?
COVID?
No, COVID's been excluded. And we've dropped more than other districts in COVID, because I've
Well,
done the
can you-
research,
yeah.
I've looked at the data. So tell me what the other factors would be
So
that
we
would be
took the
compelling.
COVID year out, right?
Yeah,
But
we took-
not,
We
COVID
have
impact is
dropped,
still
Could we look at the achievement data?
right, so you took the year out. And we talked about this
Look
too.
before the year, though, is what we're saying.
Well, sure, yeah.
Before the year of COVID. You
But
look
like
2 years
after-
before.
But we're not, we took 2020 out. So. There's, hold on, let me look at this for a second.
That's the one I was looking at.
Yeah, not the one I'm thinking. So,
It's not the one
if
you
our
were-
test scores are not good in 2022 or 2021,
Not
But-
that one.
they're not,
Is it due to the
Is it
impact
due
of the
to-
2020
right,
school
so
year?
it's
And the
not-
2021 year, that also was
Thank
not
you, Shauna.
still a regular school year. We have to remember that, too.
right? So, I just don't want everything to land on block scheduling. I'm not disagreeing with you, Kim. I'm not, like I said, I don't care one way or the other. I do care, but it's not, either way, whichever is going to be have the greatest impact on our students.
the research clearly indicates, and Sandy, I think will back me up on this, that having math and world languages every day is almost a critical point and achieving proficiency in those areas. Because we had research articles, we were looking at that. I don't know what drove us away from having a block that would allow for that. Do you remember, Sandy? What was that?
Was not on the committee. Full disclosure, that research block scheduling, I can't answer that. We did talk about it at curriculum and assessment. One of the pieces we have to consider, and we've talked about it before, but we share staff. Our music staff is shared between the middle and high school. We send kids to CTE. And so sometimes having a waterfall schedule that has skinny blocks in it, or Mr. Vaccareza said, there's all different variations we could look at. And we could look at times of day, right? The impact on student learning based on the time of day that a student is enrolled in class, which is why many schools have waterfall schedules. There are a lot of different things we could look at. But in some cases, those options are not something that's a nice fit for us, given that we send our students out to CTE at other districts, and given shared schedules of staff with the middle school, and developing a schedule where we can run music classes at both the middle and high school. Those are inferences, right? But, yeah, I don't have that specific answer, Dr. Farah, with regard to why we moved away from it.
Sheila.
Katie, choose first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna make a comment that looking at the tables from the state's website for the 80 schools, the schools that were scoring high on the ELA and math are predominantly block schedules.
So
But
are
this
you-
doesn't break out what type of block they're on, and that's an issue, because some block schedules allow for math and world languages every day. And you can't tell that by looking at this data.
Well, it still says block.
I know, I'm just,
Okay, Sheila.
some blocks have it every day.
There were two things that stood out to me on this. I'm gonna go to this little lovely graph, this one.
Math or ELA?
This one's math.
What's the title, Sheila, just so we could put it up and all see it?
2017, 2022 statewide assessment, CBAC, TRSAS, SAT.
Thank you.
That would be it. Everybody following the lines here? You see what I'm doing, right?
Follow the colors.
I follow the colors. That's
how it's
ugly.
designed.
It's ugly. It's not even a nice, I'm not even gonna say a nice word. This is ugly. And it starts, you can see, it goes, for instance, your fifth grade goes from 67 to 47, back to 52, first year of block, and dives at 44, second year of block.
So that data set there decreases prior to block and then increases the first year of implementation of block?
First year of then the second year it dives,
It does.
okay? Then you go to grade 3, 71%, yes, this is what I want. 56, 48, 35. This isn't pretty. Grade 6, 44, we go to 57. First year block, 42. Second year block, we go up 1%, 43. Nope, sorry, that's grade 11. But these are the trends that I'm looking at. This is what I see and what I have been seeing with the state stuff. That was the first thing. The second thing was back here, when we go to student schedules before and after block scheduling. Student A, 7 instructional classes, maximum schedule, pre-block. Pre-block, they had 660 minutes of instruction. We go to AB block, they're down to 640 of instruction.
And that's over 2 days. Take
That's
that
over.
and then multiply that by 180 days.
It's a lot of instruction loss. We go to student C, 6 classes, full periods. They lose 14 minutes over 2 days. You know, this is the stuff that I'm looking, this is what I was talking about when I said having kids in front of teachers. And this is the stuff I'm looking at. ELA, some of these have gone down. Grade 5, ELA, we went from 84% to 61% to 73% to 55%.
Trying to tell you.
It's not just the high school I'm talking about. It's the elementaries also. This is the trend. It's not a good trend. It's not a pretty trend. But it needs to be fixed. And I don't know what the solution is. I know we have new curriculum. I know we have change to block scheduling. But something doesn't work. And it's from the elementary all the way up. And my feelings are if you're not correcting in the elementary, it's just going to get worse on the way up. So what the answer is, I don't know. But this is what we're here for. We're here to educate kids. This should be the number one priority. And I don't know how to fix it. I've been trying to fix it for 4 years. But it doesn't look great, even before COVID, never mind after COVID. And COVID was tough, I get it. But I'm talking about the stuff before COVID. Before we even got to COVID, we weren't in a great way. That's it, Brian. It's all you.
Well, looking at the nice charts, I can see that the supermajority of the state is on some kind of a block. Correct?
Correct.
And as Kim points out, there's obviously different types of blocks, and we're missing. How do I put this? We clearly have room for improvement. We're missing instruction time in some key areas. So, what is the fix? You know, you've now been in, this is your third high school here, so. There's clearly an answer to the question that has, that has to make a drastic, measurable improvement from what we're seeing here. And I can just, being a non-educator, it's like I can see that the state of New Hampshire overall in high school seems to have block scheduling for the most part. Is that an accurate statement from what as I'm reading these charts? I don't know how many different versions of blocks exist.
What slide I didn't show, or what data set I didn't show you, is I broke down each one of the different types, 4x4, alternating, those that have skinnies. So there are different variants of it as well. I mean, that data, we didn't present that tonight, but we have that. I mean, that would be something that we'd look at, is all the different variants and everything that goes into that, and the scheduling, and as Sandy pointed out, the sharing staff between the middle school and the high school, and sending students to CTE. Sorry, John, you were,
What staff do we share between the middle and high school?
music staff.
So is that what precludes us from going with a skinny block to allow for math and language every day?
Not necessarily, no, it is one of the factors that when we build the master schedule, we have to take into account that aspect of sharing staff and students attending CTE. So those two factors are a major contributing, they become constraints in our schedule build. And we have to work with the other two schools that we send to, and just recognize that we do have students who start their day at Salem or Pinkerton and join us, or start their day with us and travel there for the end of the day, or some students are sort of doing it in the middle of the day. So we have to be cognizant of that when we build our schedule. So that's like to the point of waterfalling and aspects of that if we were to do a waterfall type schedule, or do some skinnies, some longs, and just how does that impact those students who are leaving for part of their day to go to CTE?
There must be a way to do it because other districts do it, right? I think every district sends students to CTA.
Not necessarily. Some districts have CTE in-house. There's also not the travel time. So some of our students, the travel time is embedded in. There's some schools that they are CTE entirely at that school. They're not going back and forth between two schools. Every district's a little bit different, right? We have 2 sending schools, other districts just go to 1. So there's ways to do it. We have to look at all the different things. I'm telling you that when we build a schedule, we have to take these things into account. We are not insulated from all the other things that we have to take into account. So we can build a schedule as long as it takes into account those other aspects. That's the point I was trying to make.
Well, again, and I'm not going to belabor it anymore, Timberlane at the high school level academically is not doing well. We're generally speaking below the state average. I personally do not think this block scheduling is helping our academic scores. And I think it's hurting that middle group of students the most. Those top kids are always going to do well. It doesn't matter what. We put plenty of money into the students that have additional needs, but we're doing a disservice to our high school students, and you need to get something changed here. Honestly, I just don't. I don't know what has to change. We do not seem to be able to push academics any higher, especially at the high school level. It seems to me like the middle school seems to be trending up based on what they did last year. I can't remember what shift they made.
When?
Yeah, was it that wind block?
Wind blocks.
Boy, that made a huge difference. We need to do something in the high school.
Would the board be in favor of doing a committee or maybe a subcommittee of the curriculum and assessment? Because to maybe look at doing some sort of like a variation of the block scheduling?
Well, then, that's kind of.
That's their job. I don't think we need, that's the.
Well, what the new board might want to consider doing is directing the superintendent to come back with options other than the block that we're currently using for the academic year that begins a year from September.
I just don't want to rush.
Oh, don't worry. I don't think this is ever going to happen, but if you're worried
Well,
about
I don't-
rushing, go ahead.
No,
Middle school happened within a year.
in
There
the
was conversation that
conversations-
happened within a year.
The conversations that we had at curriculum and assessment, no one's married to anything. And whatever's going to make the most sense for the most amount of kids and help Timberlane be successful. That's what we're talked about in our meeting. So nobody really is married to anything. So variations, however we need to do it is, I yield to the experts and how you guys did it, but I would support that, but I don't want to make it a quick thing.
Well, I think it's going to be a quick thing, and I think that, to me, the role of the school, the school board only really directs the superintendent. We don't direct
Oh, I
this group.
wouldn't dream of directing the expert.
Well, we don't. And as we wrap up my school board career here, that we're an approval type board, and it's, I think anyone watching here, it's pretty clear that this board is recognizing we have a problem here. It's got to be addressed. And first of all, thanks for the information here, because I didn't know until this evening that I'm not saying that's the answer, but it's pretty apparent that most people in the state are in some version of a block. I'm not sure it's a good thing, but I just the data that I look at, I don't like currently where Timberlane sits compared to where it's sat years ago. I also recognize that I wasn't expecting this quick thing, as you say, but it's high school's only a 4-year term. It should only be 4 years for one kid. So, something's wrong. That we have to do something. Something is not. It's not. This isn't an attack, if you will, on the staff. It's just collectively something's got to be addressed, and I guess we don't like where it's trending, so it's time to trend it in the other direction. There's no reason where we're paying the money, then, we know what we have to do. You have good people working here, so let's just make it happen. But that's why I don't, I look for answers versus trying to, I don't have those answers. It's not my background, so.
If you're not planning to even consider making a changes, from what I've heard, for September of '23, then you're looking at potentially making a change for September of '24. So you need to go back and figure out what your last date is at which you can make that decision, then go back 6 to 12 months from there and start getting your data together and come up with a decision on the date that you need it, so that it can then be presented to the board. That's the way to do it.
Right.
If you're looking at a change for September of '24, go backwards and figure out when your dates are and when you need the data. I think the data's clear. I could make the decision today. But I'm leaving the board, so
We wouldn't
I
be
said
able-
it again.
We wouldn't be able to implement it,
Tally mark.
however, for September of '23.
I
very
think it's
easily.
implementable by September
Well,
of '23. I don't think, I am shocked to hear that schedule is already done, because I don't know, my daughter went here for many, many years and never had her schedule in February.
They
But
just picked
maybe it's just
the end of
changed.
January, right?
Yeah.
In January, they picked their classes.
So
It is what
that's
it
my
is.
recommendation. If you want to consider making a change, figure out your timeline and start working on it now.
That's what we need to do for any change, right? We have to figure out when you need to make those decisions and back into those things, right? For any decisions or changes that we look forward to making, so absolutely.
So,
Go ahead.
no, finish.
No?
No, go ahead.
Oh, you.
So we're sitting here and we're talking about block and we're looking at scores and we're concerned about that. The problem is when I look at these scores, as Sheila pointed out, when she said 71, 56, 48, 35, that's grade 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not block. So my point is our problem isn't necessarily block or a variation of block.
Well,
Our
if you
problem
look
is-
at the other one,
But Sheila, I'm just saying, when I'm looking at these numbers, our elementary numbers are going down before they even hit the middle school or the high school.
and I
And
said
that's,
that.
exactly, and that's what I'm echoing with you, that, so as we sit here and talk about block, and we need to fix block, we need to fix what's happening before they even get to whether it be block or skinny or this or that, because that's the problem. I mean, if they're coming in already deficient, I don't care what our schedule is.
Well,
It's
by
not
the
gonna
time you go
matter.
from 8th grade to 11th grade also, but you have nothing in between, that's the problem.
Right, but
But even there, you can see, from 8th to 11th, there's a slight decline there.
Sheila did say it's, you're
But
right,
I said, if
Kristen,
you can't,
it's
you
all
have to
through.
straight,
But
you
that's my
have to
point,
go
it's
through
not-
your
No.
elementary first.
So the point, yes, and that's kind of, everything needs to be looked at. That's why I'm block, not block, I mean, it's, this whole picture just needs to be looked at as to what do we do and where do we go to improve it, because again, it doesn't matter what the schedule is. If they're coming in deficient, we're struggling to get them up to
Agreed.
par when they get there, so.
Absolutely
and then-
agreed.
And again, and I've said this before, am I married to block? Nope, I see pros and cons. My kids are in it now, or my one kid went through, one's in it, so I see it. I've seen all the sides to it, and there are definitely advantages and there are disadvantages. And I hear what Kim's saying, I hear the world languages, but not everybody takes world language. But then again, not everyone takes CTE, not everyone takes music, so there's all these factors to figure out. We're never gonna have the perfect schedule for every student. There's always gonna be some deficiency somewhere with it, because, a lot of kids can't wait to get out of world language. They can't wait to get out of math, except they have to take math, English 4 years, not math. Math is 3, right?
State law is you have to be enrolled in a math-intensive class all 4 years. All 4 years.
English, same thing, right? And the others phase out. So, but that's kind of my point, that, world language isn't there for and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but depends on, you have to look at the whole masses and figure out what's gonna work best. So, and I don't necessarily think it's straight block, I don't think it's straight short. Sorry, John.
No, one of the, just point, it's, look at trend, it goes up at actually in the 11th grade compared to 8th grade overall for those years other than one, or two. because the first 2 years, 216, 17, there's a slight bump, then it goes up. But if you really want the solution, it's about what the priority as a district is going to be. If we're going to say math is a priority, then it has to be in every single aspect of every single class if that is going to be the case. You know, and there's ways to teach that, but we have to embrace that as a district, not a singular thing. Whereas you're teaching, you know, English, you're utilizing different concepts of math. Even if you're just presenting different problems, you know, you're still utilizing math. And if world language is it, you incorporate world language at all levels. You know, if that's what's truly most important, then, you know, we had a world language program at the younger grades. We don't have that anymore. So, I mean, you know, there's just pieces that if that's the priority, then that's what we do. And if that's where the direction we're going to go in, then that's not a K through 6 or K through 5. It's not a 6 through 8. It's not a 9 through 12.
My priority.
That's across the board then.
Yep. That's the Timberlane.
Yeah. So that's all I would say.
Yeah.
on that.
I agree. My priority is every single child should be going from here to here. We should be doing everything we possibly can to raise and enrich and get these kids up to where they need to be. That is, and we've done this before, as far as I'm concerned, that is the number one job of this board, is to make sure that we are rigor, excellence, we're getting our academics out there, we're doing everything we possibly can. Education comes first. That's where I am. So, I don't know what needs to fix it.
There's not one single thing. that's
It's
for
not
sure.
one
There's
single
no
thing,
there's
but
no
it's got to
silver
start
bullet.
from the bottom up.
I just want to say that I'm not in favor or against block scheduling. As a person who's not an educator, doesn't really mean much to me. And I when we were talking about this or discussing this data in curriculum assessment, I don't think the data is conclusive any which way. And there's just so much data to pour over, and you could pinpoint certain things. For example, I'm looking at the statewide assessment between 2016 and 2017. You can see that the performance has actually gone down between that time. There was no block schedule, right? So, I mean, honestly, I don't think there's enough data to really determine anything. But one thing that we did discuss in curriculum and assessment is that maybe it'd be best to follow a cohort. Maybe start with the current sophomores and then go all the way until they're seniors and kind of see their progress. And maybe with that data, we can determine if block schedule is working or not. And that should probably land within the 2024 school year.
So are you talking about finding a single data point or finding common data points that we would use? Because one of the challenges is all we have is SAT scores when you're looking at the state assessment, and that's only taken in 11th grade. That's one of the things we talk about. What other assessments or other data points might we use through high school to measure student progress in high school?
Just to note that a plan for next year, and I think we've spoken about this before to this board, but yeah, Mr. Vacareza, we've worked on looking to implement over 2 years the PSAT next year for grade 10. And then the following year, so it would essentially, by the time a student takes the SAT, they will have taken it 3 times over the course of their high school career, PSAT twice. So we're looking to increase, right, our access to data to have a better look at how we're doing, so.
So, just to talk about that for a minute, though. Back in the day, the SATs were something important. Kids knew it, and if you wanted to go to school, you had to take the SAT and you have to do good. Most schools, majority of schools, are not requiring the SAT scores at all anymore, so kids don't care. I mean, the only thing that you're getting usually with the SATs now is merit money. I mean, there are some schools that require it. NCAA no longer requires it, so it's becoming a test that's basically lost its importance as far as a parent or a kid saying, oh, go do good on it. Because it doesn't carry the weight it does. So we're basing things on a test where a lot of kids are coming to it and taking it and don't care about it. and they're just like whatever, and they're filling out bubbles, and they could care less. So how do we address that?
Argument about
You could say that
the
about
state
every
assessment.
test.
Well,
But no,
some-
but
some
no,
people
but
make that
my,
argument about the state assessment, right?
but my point
Especially
is.
for middle schoolers, not
Well,
so
middle
much for
schools is a
elementary.
little different thing. They're coming in, they're taking it, and yes, you're gonna have the students that are students that think, oh, I wanna do good, and my parents are gonna get this little report that comes home. High schoolers, they don't care. At that point,
Oh, let's not paint with a
okay.
broad brush.
I'm not, high schoolers know that this is not going to impact them in the long run. They know it's not. I mean, it doesn't have the factors that it used to have with it. It just doesn't carry that. So I guess this is my point, like, I don't want to say incentive, but like, what can we, like, look, hey, guys, if you guys score this and do this on this test, we'll throw you a pizza party. I mean, gosh, kids respond to stuff like that. But what are we doing to make them want to come in and take this? Because I don't think a lot of them could care.
Before you answer that question, you should also point out the effect the participation rate has on those scores. Because when the students do not participate, if I remember correctly, it can seriously reduce the overall score for the district, correct?
That is true. So less than 95% participation rate, those scores all get counted as zeros and averaged in as zeros. So anything less than 95, and that's for the statewide, anything less than a 95% participation rate, like I said, would get counted as zeros, and you see that we're at what, 70-something? 74% participation.
Well, if the SAT is becoming obsolete and not needed, then maybe is there another metric we should be
It's a
looking at?
state
to-
required.
Well,
Well, you could
Yeah, but-
absolutely use another metric,
There would be
because you
another
could
outcome
have an
measure.
internal, you could have final exams that you could use if you developed some sort of rubric and assessment and had greater reliability. Of course you could. Of course you could. I'm not a big fan of the SAT. I'm not a fan of the PSAT either as a means of assessing. There should be somehow in this district that we're assessing on an annual basis, say pre-calculus or chemistry, with the same questions. This is what I do in my own college. Same sort of questions. And then we pass them around and different people grade them, and then we assess and we figure out where we've dropped the ball.
And-
I don't know why we don't do that here.
But even, I mean, and you can do that across because you have CTE students that are not going to be taking calculus.
Right.
And you can do some sort of assessment with the CTE and get, are we improving in our CTE scores? Are we driving those up? Because those kids, if they go and take the calc test, it's not going to be.
I'm not saying they would never take.
I'm not saying they would, Kim. You're missing I'm just saying there's different areas that you should be looking at. We're talking about improving the scores of all the kids, but not all kids are going to thrive in math or English. They might thrive in a different area because that's their interest, that's their subject. So we should be testing across the board in all different subjects from level CTE to a calculus and everything in between to understand, are our students continuing to improve in that area? Because those are the students that belong in that area.
But that's
Go
finals,
straight
isn't
across.
it?
So
Excuse me?
it-
Wouldn't that be finals?
We,
I don't know if you
if
can
I may,
necessarily do
we do have department finals. We do have finals that are the same course, same final. So everyone taking, chemistry CCP is taking the exact same final. So whether they have, teacher A or teacher B, they're taking the same final. We collect that data, we analyze that data. In years past, we've given reports back to the teachers. The inter-rater reliability, we do that where we can. Part of that is teacher schedules and the time to do that. Especially at the end of the year. We don't have professional development days built into the end of the year where the teachers have time to do that. If we did, that would be a great exercise for teachers to do. Administration has looked at that data. We've gotten that data back to the teachers for feedback. We have competencies that are standard across the board. We have rubrics that are standard across the board. We have teachers grading competencies using that rubric, using that language, reporting out on that, and we are running the data on that. So everything that you're asking for, we're doing. Everything that we presented today is using the state metric of the SATs, which, to your point, students view the SATs in different ways. But this is the metric that we're using. This is the metric that we're using, comparing schools versus schools. The internal metrics, we have those as well. I'd be happy to do a whole presentation on competency and competency reporting and get you the data on that as well. It's obviously going to look different, and I can't compare it to all the other schools because they do things differently. But we are collecting that data, and we are analyzing that data, and we are looking how our students are doing on our own internal metrics. This is just happens to be an external metric.
Which is exactly what was asked for, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you did a great job. There was a lot of good information there.
A lot of hard work and time went into that, so thank you all
It
for
is
that.
greatly appreciated.
So, all right. Thank you. Next agenda item, policy. Looks like we have one policy here.
Second read?
It's like a first read here, so.
Not the first, I thought it was,
Maybe second.
This should be a second.
this should be a second read.
Okay.
We changed something and sent it back and just asked them to change it from myschoolbucks.com to online electronic payments.
I'll make a motion to accept it as a second.
A second. Never mind, Katie seconded it.
Okay, motion made by Kim, second by Katie. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? 8-0-0. Thanks. New Hampshire retirement reimbursement. It's in your packets here, so you want to come up and give us some good news?
House Bill 1221 came into effect, and with that House Bill, it was decided that they had our New Hampshire retirement system was going to reimburse 7.5% of our contribution. With that, we were able to receive $385,380.94 came into our bank account. The timing of it, we knew when we were establishing our tax rates back in the fall. We worked with the DRA, and they made the decision to put that money in our MS-24. So when they did the tax rates for this year, it was already included. So the taxpayers, the money went right against the tax rates. So that has already been in the tax setting. So everything's already gone back to the taxpayers.
And it showed up in the revenue of the budget.
Right, it showed up in the revenue, and it was counted in the MS-24 for this past tax, in the fall, when we were doing our tax
So
rate
November, December bill,
Right.
July bill.
Correct. Even though we didn't receive the money till February, we knew we were gonna get it, so it was part of the tax rate setting.
So we spend about, we put in about 5 million a year to this system? Because you said this is 7%.
7.5%, yeah, and it was as of the end of June 2022 is where they did the calculation. It's probably that sounds,
5.5 million towards
it's
retirement
quite
a year.
extensive. Yes, well, the rate did drop down. They did drop the rate down for the next, or for this upcoming year, for teachers.
5 million plus or minus retirement. Just putting it out there. I'm just did
It's a big number.
385,000 divided by 0.07 will give you that number. Thank you.
Okay, Kim.
Just wanted to bring a little math back into
That's
the
good.
topics.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a big refund.
That's a heck of a big refund. Administrator's report.
Just two cool things to share with you. One is just a review. I know you all met Zach earlier this time. He was here with Dr. Neil Campbell, was talking about ELOs and working out at the horse farm and doing that kind of real work.
Yep.
So if you caught the copy of the Eagle Tribune on the 13th, there's a real good article on him, his experience there, and just the value that program is holding for him. So again, a shout out to Zach and certainly to Dr. Campbell, who continues to make that program as robust as it can be, and we'll look forward to kind of more reports and meeting more kids and seeing where their learning is taking them outside of the classroom. Second, and just a unique thing I think about Timberlane is I connected, or Mr. Costantino connected with myself, and so did Mitch Mensis, and they're working with a high school student in her AP Language Arts class. She's doing some work around claiming and counterclaiming, and she wanted to do something here around the school, so she was able to kind of reconnect with Mr. Mensis as the administrator she had in middle school, and he then directed her to me, so I'm going to start working with Allie Galvin next week, and she wants to do some kind of an expose on the resources available to schools and how those things transition and translate into serving students. So just that cool kind of trickle-down effect that students feel comfortable to reach back out to past teachers and administrators, use them as sources of research and sources, and have it inform their own thinking conclusions they're drawing. So Allie, look forward to working with you next Thursday.
So great, thank you. Just wanted to thank everybody for coming out for the deliberative session. Thank you again to the board, to the budget committee, to our folks that work behind the scenes, to our staff that all came out, and to all of the community members. It was a relatively well-attended event, and there was certainly some spirited discussion, so that. So again, thank you to everyone. You will be receiving, our folks in all 4 communities will be receiving this trifold voter guide, which just provides summary information regarding the warrant articles for the March 14th voting day. And the QR code, rather, is something that if you click on it, brings you right to that location on our website that provides you additional information. We'll continue to put additional information both on the website, and you'll be receiving some of that. Another thing, and this is sort of late breaking, it was just an idea I had, and I've sent this out to a couple of the town administrators and the clerks, and they'll check with the supervisors of the checklist whether or not we could have something like this, which Kelly and Kerry and Ken, I think Ken came up with this final model. Just, to have a QR code that just brings folks who click on that QR code, will bring you right to a sign-up sheet, a Google form, to sign up to receive additional information, ongoing communication, just trying to capture some of the information that would allow us to reach out to other community members that don't have kids in our schools, and thinking that, voting would be a good place. So if we have these on those checklist tables, and you can, scan it with the QR code, all you have to do is put in your name. If you want to put in your email, then we can send you email information. If you put in your telephone, we can send you a text that would then require you to opt in to receive additional texts or other telecommunications. And then once we have that, we can send you those as well. We would create a community group, so you're not going to get the call that says, hey, there's no school this morning. You're going to get calls specifically designed to reach out to community members that might not have kids in school. Might be the same messages or information that we're sending to our families, but, something that's appropriate for all community members. So just looking to try and reach out and provide more information to other members of our community that we don't have a direct link with. And that's it for me.
For administrators, personnel report. So we have some actions here.
Yeah.
We do.
You want me to do this?
It's Fran.
Hang on a second, we have Fran's in here. Hi. So, did you?
Do you want me to just go through these, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer any
Oh.
questions.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the professional retirements of Nancy Stafford, principal of Sandown North, and Patrice Liff, principal of Sandown Central, and I'd like to thank them for their dedication in years to the district.
Motion been made by Sheila.
Second.
We have a bunch of seconds over here. We'll go a little middle here.
Pick the middle.
Katie was second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-0.
I'd like to make a motion for a resignation of Shauna Burney, school counselor at Sandown North, Sandown Central TLC.
Second.
Motion made by Sheila, second by Michael. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 8-0.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the administrative resignation of Nicole Dennehy, payroll coordinator, SAU office.
Second. You had your chance.
By Sheila, second by Katie. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 8-0.
And now I'd like to make a motion to accept Matthew Rose as the new payroll coordinator for the SAU office.
Second that. Thanks, Katie. You're welcome.
Motion made by Sheila, second by Shauna. All those in favor? Opposed, abstention, 800.
So I was talking about, Brian, one resigned and they had hired something, like, it was
Very quick,
all on the same sheet. Good, nice.
very impressive. Nicely done.
Thank you, Fran.
I know I said to Sheila talking about that, I wanted to thank Kerry and Lisa for jumping right in and taking over payroll because it was a quick leave and somebody needed to step up and make sure everybody got paid, and they did a remarkable job.
Thank you.
And have identified some things that we're making improvements on, so thank you very much.
Okay. Committee reports. Michael?
Just a reminder that we've already talked about this, strategic planning is going to meet again February 23rd.
Okay.
Safety committee, we did meet last week. Only real thing to mention was the internet safety happened.
The ICAC.
Right, and it sounded like it went off really good, had good reception. And then other than that, that's all I have.
I don't have anything.
Nothing with me. Kristen?
Nope.
Nope.
Yep, nothing.
One more meeting.
Sheila has one more meeting, in case anyone's wondering.
That's all I've got.
What are they gonna do after that, though? Would you call in
Nope,
for a motion?
nope,
Mo-
Stay home.
Motion Queen of the Year, that's it.
that's it.
Okay. Okay.
We're going into a non-public
We're gonna
now?
go into non-public, I don't see.
We are.
1A?
91A, well, reputation, basically.
Isn't it AA?
Makes me sad.
1, 2,
It's A and C.
A and C? Fran, can I ask a question before you go?
John, we need you.
Is that the motion for A and C?
Is that the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Michael seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, please, Linda.
Sheila Lowe's?
Yes.
Kim McCormick?
Yes.
Kristen Savage?
Yes.
Brian Boyle?
Yes.
Kim Farah?
Yep.
Donna Manthorn?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Newsom, and Mike.
Yep.